Chapter 55. The Guardian. Bewildered, Kai looked around, searching for the owner of the mysterious feminine voice. It was then he felt a warm breeze against his neck. Putting his hand to his neck, he found it devoid of his usual living fox scarf. He quickly found Akane standing between Kai and the headmistress, like a guardian from the village stories. Just as he was about to call out to her, the sight of her eyes caused his voice to catch. Her intelligent eyes had shifted from the normally perfect gold coloring to a bright red that seemed to glow and dance in the light coming off the molten lava. Then the impossible happened. Akane's body started growing, larger and larger, until she was the size of a house. One tail after another sprouted from the original, until a total of 9 majestic tails flowed behind her. The normally illustrious crimson fur had turned even more vibrant and beautiful than before. It shined and pulsed as if magic was infused and woven into every strand of fur. The very air around them rippled with power and magic. Kai had felt nothing like this before. Stone, dead bodies, and other objects began floating, as if invisible threads were pulling them into the sky. The mana in the area kept climbing. His body teetered on edge as the pressure quickly became too much for him to handle. Then the pressure stopped as everything came crashing back down to the ground. 9-tailed kitsune. 4 question marks? The once small and adorable, now turned massive and terrifying fox growled, causing the very air to vibrate so hard, houses half a block away collapsed. The stone below cracked and shattered, yet somehow Kai remained unharmed. Kai wondered if he was under an illusion again, or perhaps worse, dead. He was having trouble believing what he was seeing. The possibility that the gluttonous fox that often slept around his neck, stole his food, and made his life generally harder was a house-sized creature of unfathomable power and magic. It was just too insane. Kai's mind spun as he tried to comprehend the situation. Had Akane always been hiding her true form from him? Did his parents know? There were just too many questions. But then it all made sense. Everything clicked. The amount of food she consumed, the legend from the village, her random appearances. His eyes widened even further at the realization that all the other foxes in the village might be the same. The headmistress, the person who had killed one of the oldest and most powerful people in the kingdom, shivered uncontrollably. Her face was fraught with horror, as if the mere sight of Akane terrified her down to her very being. Faux 4 question marks, he heard her whisper. Here. Impossible. Perhaps because it was still Akane, just in a larger form, Kai didn't feel any fear from the monster before him. You... The headmistress gulped and cleared her voice. Mighty and majestic kitsune, why have you appeared here? She tried to mask it, but the fear was evident in her voice. Oh, you know what I am. The same feminine voice entered their minds that Kai assumed was Akane. Of course, I am not bound in ignorance like those who never set their aims high, your magnificence. Magnificence, Akane purred slightly. You flatter me at the precipice of your life. The subtle threat caused the headmistress's face to turn ghastly white. You have set your sights on my food provider. The last 2 words were emphasized as if it was an inside joke that clearly the headmistress didn't get as her face went a shade paler. Why would I not appear when you disrespect me so? Even though the words were projected into Kai's mind, he could feel the intent and loathing laced into them, directed at the one other recipient. With no more words uttered, the headmistress vanished from sight. There was no doubt she was running for her life. You think to use illusions against me? There is no one in this myriad of worlds more proficient in them than I. Akane likewise vanished from sight, startling Kai. Then nothing. A minute passed where Kai heard nothing besides the crocodilian somewhere behind him, still stomping away. Completely out of his depth, he stood nervously waiting. Akane appeared the next moment as if walking right through space. She looked completely unharmed. Falling onto the ground in front of Kai was the headmistress laid flat on her back. Both her arms and legs were gone, burned away into stubs. She lay completely nude before them, exposed and vulnerable. You hid well with your void and illusion magic. But before you are nothing but a child wielding magic you barely comprehend. Impossible. You burned away the void, the headmistress screeched. She was still full of energy, despite her new stubby form. The fox chuckled, causing the air to vibrate visibly. Kai. Akane's voice entered his mind. Take your sword and stab her through the heart, she commanded him. Jerking his head to the side, his mouth hung open. He was stunned for a moment, but then his reason returned to him. Wow, who knew you could be grateful? He quipped before covering his mouth with his hand. His impulsivity had gotten to him again. Crimson eyes found his as Akane's tongue came out and licked the side of her mouth, hopefully teasing him. Tears began spilling down the headmistress's fear-ridden face. Knowing now that she had been the main cause of much of his trouble throughout the academy brought him no small satisfaction seeing her like this. Her designs and intentions on the kingdom had directly and indirectly killed many, including his roommate Hector. Karma was being repaid. Accepting Akane's gift, Kai's sword hovered over the woman's heart. Thrusting down with heavy blow, he stabbed right where her heart should be. His arms jerked as if his sword had hit a stone he could not cut. Only it was the woman's skin. Even with all of his strength, the blade didn't penetrate her flesh. Try again, Akane calmly sent him. Don't do this. My master will kill you both, she cried out. Kai turned his head to look at the fox standing right above him. No one will know of your death. I set up illusions in the area before you even found us. You have been trapped in my domain this entire time, and you never knew. None shall ever know of your death. Akane's voice was the visage of confidence. Pushing down with renewed strength, he still couldn't make any progress. Keep trying, came Akane's voice again. A large clawed toe moved in front of Kai's face a moment later and pressed down on the pommel of his sword. The woman screamed holy murder as the sword sunk in. Even with a sword, though the heart she didn't seem to be dying. Organs were less useful the higher you ascended, meaning even without a heart, the headmistress might be able to live on. Crimson's flames engulfed the headmistress a moment later. Kai felt no heat from the fire as the woman screeched in pain only to vanish into ashes a moment later. Your group has slain Human Overlord level 37. Vanguard has reached Forging level 9. Vanguard has reached Forging level 14, only 5 levels. Obviously his contributions didn't amount to much. With the traitor gone, Akane turned her full attention onto Kai. Behind them, the stomping of the Credillion hadn't stopped. He was surprised the Credillion hadn't noticed the massive fox, but then he remembered Akane had said she set the area up in an illusion. The two stared at each other. During that time, Kai realized Akane had not taken a single breath. Is that all I am to you? A food provider? Kai started off with a joke, which fell lamely on his ears. If the mythical, legendary monster said he was a food provider, who was he to say anything differently? The massive fox lowered her head until she was at ground level with Kai. Her crimson eyes sparkled with humor as she stared right at him. Strangely, he didn't feel afraid in front of this monster. Perhaps because of everything they had been, though, he trusted her. After all, she had just saved him and helped him to level up. And most importantly, he had fed her often. I'm not tasty, he added. That seemed to get a reaction as the sides of her mouth curled up. Her eyes lifted to view something above his head and beyond. Matching her gaze, he saw the Crodelian was now staring intently at Akane. The illusions must have vanished. Follow. Akane walked past Kai in the direction of the Crodelian. Stepping onto the lava, it receded from Akane as if her mere touch was poison to it. Every step cleared a new spot of lava until a pathway had formed. Oddly, the lava did not flow back after Akane had walked past. Shaking his head at the sight, he followed in a sprint, or else he wouldn't be able to catch up. Stopping half a block away, the Crodelian towered over Akane's new form. It made no move to do anything, as if it was weary of her. All it did was stare unnervingly at her. No visible humans remained fighting the monster. Either they had all given up or died. The Crodelian looked relatively unharmed, despite having fought hundreds of warriors and mages through the city. Kai's fate was now in Akane's paws. Rather, it always seemed to be. He just hadn't known it until now. Closer to the Crodelian than ever, an oppressive stench of rotten eggs permeated the air. It was one thing to face monsters on or near your level, but standing before something so much more powerful. He had to actively fight his instincts to run. It was what he imagined standing before a dragon, a creature of supreme power that's very presence messed with his instincts. Only Akane's confident presences kept him from pissing himself and running. It didn't even seem to acknowledge him below at the fox's feet. If they fought, he would definitely die as mere collateral, as would most everyone else remaining in the city. Use your gravity on it, Akane spoke to his mind, breaking his turbulent thoughts. Would his gravity even have any effect on such a thing? Sure, it was enormous with a lot of mass, but it was also incredibly powerful. The theory of experience states that experience from defeating a monster is split proportionally to the damage proportionally dealt to it. In Kai's current situation, most of the people that had damaged the Credillion had died, so there would be less of a split. But still, his gravity would probably be too weak to cause any harm to that monster. Domain was out. He could only use it within 15 meters of his person. That left Gravity Pillar and Gravity Well. An unexpected air-vibrating growl brought him out of his stupor. Right, just use the abilities already. Gravity Well and Gravity Pillar were placed next and over the Credillion. The only reason he knew the monster felt it was because the next second its eyes shifted to him before it dismissed him as inconsequential and turned back to the real threat. Roaring its challenge, the Credillion's eyes never left Akane's body again. There was no change in Akane's body language. She appeared casual, as if entire situation wasn't a concern. If she was communicating with the monster, Kai wasn't aware. Lava began flowing around the Credillion's entire body. In between every scale, lava emerged, giving the black scales a highlighted effect. At the same time, the temperature in the area spiked. The entire area below the Credillion's feet had turned to bubbling lava that kept expanding outward. Even half a block from the monster, Kai felt his skin sizzle and begin to cook. His armor was shining even brighter than when it had been engulfed in flames during the battle with Max. He thought he was about to die until a barrier surrounded him, completely blocking the rising heat. The lava expanded until it reached the two, but instead of swallowing them whole, it shirked around, making an island of sorts. The sea of lava surrounded them until it fully encompassed the area. Taking a step forward, the Credillion's foot splashed lava high into the air. Its body angled down, mouth unhinging. Kai thought death would soon be upon him again when he saw the eerie orange glow from inside its mouth. What followed wasn't chunks of lava, but a concentrated stream shot straight at Akane. "This for destroying my favorite food stall," the words entered his mind as crimson fire flowed out of Akane's mouth. Kai felt himself go blind as lava and fire collided. Emilio lay broken and bleeding as his body had been thrown into a partially collapsed clothing store. His arm up to his elbow was gone, destroyed by the Credillion, and with it his ring of storage. 3/4 of his body was burned or melted, including his right lung. After so much fighting over the years, he could tell his exact injuries with ease. His only hope was that a healer or someone with powerful potions could find him, or his end would be very near. 1,300 years he had lived, and for 1,000 of that he had ruled, creating a kingdom to call home. Now his life's work was at a precipice. A small breeze could knock them off the edge, or in this case, the Credillion. If the beast continued its rampage through the kingdom, then it would be the end. Not even the Heart Empire could do so much damage. Shifting his body, he pushed off the floor with one hand. What should have been the simplest of tasks in his realm was grueling torture. Finally standing, he leaned against a half-broken wall before bending over and throwing up more blood than he was comfortable seeing. A hole must have burned into my stomach, causing blood to flow into it. Wiping his mouth on his dirty sleeve, he took one step, then another, until he found himself at the entrance of the shop. So many buildings had been destroyed, allowing him an almost clear line of sight to the Credillion nearly 20 blocks away. Not that it didn't completely tower over everything around it. His enhanced eyes examined the monster, but his heart broke as he saw most of the damage had healed already. It had all been too superficial. His brows shot up when he saw another monster standing below the enormous monster. A crimson fox with 9 tails that didn't even reach kneecap height of the Credillion. Identifying it, he received a huge shock. Forest Fox, Foundation Level 60. His mind was playing tricks on him. He had been thinking of the royal palace's food theft, and the suspect had been his son's friend companion Fox. Now he was hallucinating, as his mind injected the identified tag of the boy's fox onto the creature before him. Reaching his remaining hand up to rub his eye, he felt nothing where it should have been. Switching it over to the other side, he felt relieved at feeling the other one. Bird, Foundation Level 0. What? His head shook away the impossibility. Next to the fox, he saw a boy. Human, Forging Level 14. Relief flowed through his shattered body. That makes more sense. Wait, no it doesn't. Why is someone in the forging realm next to both? His thoughts were frozen as lava and fire collided in the air. The reaction from the ensuing collision instantly obliterated any buildings nearby the fight. From even 20 blocks away, he felt the temperature rise insanely fast. The oppressive heat distorted the air, causing his remaining lung to feel like his charred skin. A barrier spawned around him, blocking the heat, but he didn't dare look around for who did it, else he missed the fight. Like a wave of destruction, building after building began melting and vanishing, until 10 seconds later, the doorway of the very building in which he had been standing began melting. He was safe inside the barrier. It didn't even fluctuate or pulse with damage, as if the heat could do nothing to it. In the next moment, the Crodillion dissolved much like the buildings around him. Emilio didn't know how many times he could be shocked today until he became numb to it, but what he saw terrified him. A monster that had lived in fire and lava, that was surmised to be highly resistant to fire magic, was literally being melted away in mere seconds by fire magic. The stream of crimson fire traveled down the Crodillion's body, melting its scales and bones until nothing was left. The ding came when the head had vanished. The fox didn't relent as the crimson flames finished off the entire body until no traces of the Crodillion could be found. Your group has slain Crodillion, Paragon Level 2. A smile came to his face. His head dipped, followed by his body as he collapsed to the ground. Laying on his side, the world turned darker. He wasn't sure if it was because the fire and lava had vanished or because he was at his end. Thoughts of his family swept through his mind, and then the kingdom. He only hoped that in his absence someone would protect his legacy. His world turned darker until no light reached his eyes. At the very abyss of death, he heard 4 words. Let's make a deal.